Hello and a very warm welcome to the first ever Big Carp News Podcast. I'm your host, Joel Harbour, and I'm delighted to be bringing you a number of podcasts over the coming months. We'll be talking all things carpy right here in the USA, everything from the history of carp angling right up to the current times and absolutely everything in between. So whether you're out on the road or on a session waiting for a fish or just relaxing in the comfort of your own home, grab yourself a drink, take the weight off and sit back as I'm delighted to connect you with a number of guests here on the Big Carp News Podcast. Our first guest is a very avid all-species angler and has been in the carp game for a number of decades, with just as many outstanding captures over the years right here in the USA. He's also been a huge part of the well-known Carp Anglers group. Along with that, he's always given a huge helping hand to create a very educated awareness of catch and release carp angling all over the USA. He's referred to as one of the nicest guys you could ever meet in carp angling in the US, and from what I've heard, he's got some very deadly throwing stick skills as well. So hang around and take a listen, as it's my pleasure to welcome to the very first Big Carp News podcast, Mr. Mike Dragone. Looking back on it, I think what was most important that we wanted to kind of capture was the historic side of angling here in the US, especially carp fishing specifically. I know you're a multi-species angler, aren't you? So
yeah, I'll fish for anything as long as I got time.
There you go. That's one of the downsides, isn't it? Never have enough time to do it.
Right, exactly.
So tell us a little bit about your past and how it all kind of began for you in terms of your fishing in general, but we can kind of bleed into the carp fishing later on.
I started very young age. I was probably 8 or 9 years old. I always had interest in fishing. I never really had any mentor. I begged my father to take me.
Right.
He broke down and we went to the local Five and Dime or wherever. We bought a couple of cheap fishing rods and some rubber worms, and we went at it. We tried to catch fish, and my father was pretty patient with me as far as that goes, and untangling knots and getting hooked and all that good stuff. But I lived across from the east branch of the Croton River in Westchester County, New York, so I had access to water, within walking distance of my house from when I was a young boy.
Couldn't get it any better than really.
Right. So as far as carp fishing goes, I mean, there were carp in the river, and I used to occasionally hook one by accident, while I was fishing for trout or whatever. And of course, most of the times, I would just get smoked by the fish and break my line or whatever. But I always had an interest in it, based on how they fought and how fun they were to catch. So as I was a little older, I actually purposely, fished for carp. Not in the greatest way, with treble hooks and gobs of worms under fishing at night. It was a good time. We would catch carp and eels and bullheads. It was kind of a fun thing to do as a kid.
Yeah.
And then I kind of as I got older, went to college and got out of fishing for a while, and then I got back into it. And if you remember the famous In Fisherman article about carp fishing back in the mid-90s, out in Mille Lacs up in, where is that, Minnesota?
Way over there.
Wherever they are, Wisconsin, wherever it is. And it rekindled my desire to carp fish. It was always fun.
Sure.
And I saw that it was like a gadgety kind of sport now. And all
kind of progressed a little bit more, hadn't it?
It was nothing like it used to be. And it just ignited this interest again. So from there, in that same article, there was a phone number for a local tackle distributor called Euro Tackle with Nigel Griffin. And I called the number and spoke to him for about an hour about carp fishing. And we talked about everything. And the whole time I'm thinking, like, he's got a store at his house. I'm going to go to his house. I'm going to buy all this stuff. And at the end of the conversation, he said, well, mate, I just have, stuff in my house here.
Sure.
So I was like, okay. So I ordered my first, pod. And
now, what year was that, like, roughly?
I would say,
do you have any idea on that?
We're talking probably 1994 or 5.
Okay.
Somewhere around there. So I was, I got a hold of him and I got my first pod and some tackle and tackle. And I bought some rods from Whacker Bait out in Chicago. And
Because everything for carp wise at that point in time, that year, was still kind of in its infancy, wasn't it? Really?
Yeah, it was not easy to find that stuff.
Right.
And back in the early CAG days, I joined CAG right as at that time, and there was no internet, or if there was, it was in its infancy. So the only way to communicate was through these quarterly mailings that they would send out. So, and the big one was the one in the spring, and it told everybody where all the fishings were going to be. And that was how you met people. You didn't call them up. We didn't have cell phones and none of that stuff. We just basically went to these fishings and met these people that were larger than life. Some of them, Oatmeal Jack and some of these other characters from CAG, and it kind of progressed from there. Once the internet came about and the forum came about, the communication got even better, the networking got even bigger,
right?
And carp fishing got even bigger.
Yeah. Obviously you've been in the game for quite a while in terms of, fishing in general, but for carp specifically, since you started to where it is now, that progression, it's obviously grown quite a bit, and obviously everyone will agree with that. But what have you seen that have been the biggest kind of growths in that kind of stuff?
I think it's, like when I first started doing this, and, you could probably say the same thing, when you were fishing with the tackle that you had, and people would walk up to me and say, "Well, I've never seen that before. That's really cool."
Right.
And now I have people come up to me and saying, "Yeah, I seen another guy using that same stuff over here." And I always say, "Well, I probably know who he is." And they mention the name. I'm like, "Yeah, I know the guy." So it's big. It's bigger over here than it was, but it's not obviously as big as it is in other parts of the world.
Of course.
It's kind of like a large fraternity here. More,
everyone's very close knit, isn't it?
Everybody kind of knows everybody, or knows of people. The names are familiar. That, and I think some of the tournaments that have been promoted over the years has also brought a little brought that out in the public eye a little bit more.
Sure.
Whether it be the stuff that the early ACS tournaments, or the stuff that the
because all that's changed over the years, hasn't it? And like certain individuals have kind of started their own tournaments, and then kind of. Like you mentioned, like CAG kind of did their own like yearly stuff as well.
CAG was more
seasonal
of CAG
stuff.
was more of just a gathering point. It wasn't really competitive. It was more of just promote the fundamentals of carp fishing. Care for the fish and preserve the resources. And
of course,
have fun. Whatever those initiatives were. And then off of that, these other groups, ACS came about, and for the more competitive, part of the sport. And I'll be honest with you, I'm a competitor. I like to compete.
You do a few tournaments, don't you?
I try to do at least one or two a year.
Yeah. Well, you just did one, right?
We just did one up in the St. Lawrence, and almost died from the heat exhaustion.
Yeah, it's pretty dreadful from what I heard.
We caught some nice fish, and it's good to see the guys up there. I haven't been up there in probably 9 years. That was the place to go back. Back in the early 2000s.
Well, we did mention that, didn't we, on our phone call the other day? Kind of how it's changed over the years. Now, it used to be so much more prolific to what it is now.
Maybe it's a natural evolution.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I think so.
I don't think we've carp fished long enough in this country to really know what goes on. But as some places die down, some places pick up. Now Connecticut River is like the hot spot. It is, isn't it? Pretty monstrous fish there, and there's tons of them, and there's a lot of easy access, and it's close to home. It's not too far of a
Those
ride.
fish on the St. Lawrence, I know we spoke on it briefly, and it's funny because I had a conversation with another angler that's kind of been in the game for a long time. Hopefully we can get him on one of the podcasts as well. It'd be great to hear from him. But, we kind of mentioned almost exactly the same thing. Like you go and fish it, and years back it would be a number of fish almost very instantaneously, like as soon as you got a rod out. But now it's like you really got to work for it. Do you think that's like changing the weather, the river itself, the fish have wised up, moved out, died off even maybe?
I wouldn't say that in the case of the St. Lawrence, it was the fish wised up, because there's just too damn many of them. At least there should be. We used to go up there and just, pull the car on the side of the road and cast out a boilie at range and have a fish on in 10 minutes. And you could do that anywhere up there. Yeah. And some places were just so crazy. You couldn't keep 2 rods in the water. And I like I said, I've been there in a number of years, but I see that, the catch rates are down and the sizes of fish are down. And, are they educated? I don't know. Maybe there's just a natural evolution of, some of the larger groups of fish die off or move off or whatever. I really don't know. It's really hard to predict, exactly what's going on in a large body of water like that. Now, in contrast, a small body of water, just like some of the small European, lakes and ponds that people fish, the fish get smart. They see a rig, they know what a rig is.
Do, yeah.
Here in most places, you don't have to worry about hiding your lead or doing any fancy hook links. You just throw a sliding, pair lead on there with a hair rig and anything on it, and chances are you're going to be just as effective as somebody with a fancy rig. So I really don't know what the difference is in some of these waters that we fish that were prolific that aren't as such today. But it doesn't matter because there's so many other waters where they are.
Isn't it? Yeah, well, that's it. Another thing we kind of mentioned about was like how many waters that are here that just aren't really, we don't really know the true potential of them. And
well, you yourself know, Joel, you live in this area. There's so many bodies of water around. It'd take you, 10 years to explore half of them. And, who has the time?
That's it.
I don't. I wish I did. And maybe someday when I'm retired, I'll find some nice spots. But you really can almost go anywhere here, and that's part of the beauty of it. Is the waters aren't really pressured. It doesn't take a lot of effort to find a spot where you're the only guy fishing for carp.
That's it.
And the fish usually cooperate.
Yeah. Now, over the years, obviously. I know you touched on it briefly about how you were able to kind of pick up the tackle and the rods and stuff like that. From then to now, and the quality of the products that are available. Obviously, we know that they've kind of progressed. But do you think that was being able to get them now from places like Big Carp Tackle and a number of other retailers, obviously that are available, obviously helping grow the sport?
Yeah, I think so. I even some of the local chain stores, like your Walmarts and some of the other places, the Dick's Sporting Goods, whatever.
Just kind of carrying.
They're starting to carry them. I see stuff in there that's carp related, where I never did before. Before you had to just find something that was suitable, for what
just to kind of get by or whatever
you're doing. Unless you want to spend big money and have your stuff shipped over from Europe or whatever. But fortunately, you had enough people here now where you can get some pretty good tackle at decent prices. And, I always tell people that ask me, oh, how much does this cost? How much does it cost to get into this? I'm like, it doesn't have to cost you anything. Very little, You can go out and get the bare minimum, get some ugly stick rods and a couple reels with decent drags and tie some hair rigs and, get some leads that are local here. You don't have to go crazy, or you can go all out.
Go full on.
You can
with
buy,
it.
$1,000 set of alarms and, $2,000 worth of rods and reels. And that doesn't even count the bait and the other stuff, that you can spend money on. So, if it ever became as popular as Europe, it'd be a cash cow over here. People would be making money.
I think it's a matter of time, isn't it? Before
and I have people that think, we don't want it to be that popular over here. People that are doing it here, they're like, this is kind of good. We got this to ourselves here, and really not a lot of pressure, but it is getting more popular. There's no doubt about it, due to some of the exposure and the availability of the tackle. And these clubs and groups that we walk around with.
Yeah, that's it. I've thought, for me personally, I believe that there's room for everyone in that regard. I think there is room for growth
until they're in your swim.
But then that's it. Yeah, that's exactly it. And then you kind of think, oh, hang on a minute, why did I ever want that? Because it's good as it is now.
I can honestly say I've never really had any problems. It's just, I just go where I want when I want, and it's usually no problem. No issues at all.
Now, you got many plans for the rest of this year with everything else going on. You looking at doing any other tournaments that are coming up possibly? Yeah,
usually every year I do the Baldwinsville event up in New York State. They're canceled this year due to the COVID issue, and which makes sense. It's a pretty large gathering up there, and since they're canceling that event this year, I'm going to jump in and do the Connecticut River event, which is in mid-October. I think Fishing Factory down in Middletown is putting that on. It's a fun event. I've never done it in the past, only because I haven't had the time this year. I do have a little extra time, so I'm going to give that a shot. And I know the river fairly well, so I would hope that that's somewhat an advantage, as far as that goes. But that's my tournament plans for the rest of the year.
Right.
And then, like I said, I do one or two a year if I can. And then, some social fishing, I'm sure I'll do once this heat dies down.
Got to get out there and get it done. Yeah.
I like fishing in the fall. It's kind of like my favorite time to fish.
I'm with you on that one. It's definitely an enjoyable time of year, isn't it?
The fish are putting weight on and
colors and all that beautiful colors.
It's cool out. It's not uncomfortable. It's fun. It's kind of my time. So I'm hoping to get out a little more this fall than I had in the past couple of years. So
I was speaking to Dan Pazio back a little while, and he said that you're quite a fiend with the throwing stick. Is there any backstory to that? Because
I guess you get pretty good at it after a while. But I have an old Cobra stick. I don't even think they're in business anymore.
I'm not sure. Yeah,
but I've had it forever, and I've gotten so good with it, I can almost put boilies in a bucket at like 100 yards.
Jeez.
And one time we were up at the St. Lawrence fishing an event up there years ago. I think it was one of the old specialist tournaments, and there was a cormorant sitting on a buoy about 120 yards out, and I wanted to see how close I could get to the cormorant and make him fly off the buoy. I think I hit him on the second shot.
Oh my gosh!
So, no injuries, but he did move off. But it's a handy piece of kit. When you're fishing at range, and actually that's one of my preferred methods is to fish at range. So
and boilies mostly kind of
for the most part. It's I used to make my own, and boilies can be expensive.
Oh, they add up, don't they?
And I'm really fortunate that I do have a partnership with
that's good.
One of the local, the U.S. bait companies. So they help me out when it comes to tournaments and whatnot. So I don't have to make a million boilies before I leave the house. So.
Yeah, I've done a few myself, and
but you don't have to fish boilies. Everybody knows here particles. Fish will take particles readily here.
So there's been some big fish over the years that have kind of fallen to a couple of bits of corn.
Some of my biggest fish have been on 2 pieces of plastic corn popped up. So
there you go.
It's not rocket science. You just got to get the fish in a competitive feeding mode, and you're going to catch some fish. Unfortunately, he fell to a bow fisherman, a number of years ago.
But before that, you did manage to catch him right off of a boat launch, and
there was a little park area on this one lake, and it's known for its mirror population. Although I did catch a common there once, I was quite surprised. But it's one of those places that it's got some nice mirrors in it. You don't catch a ton of them, but you can get into them pretty good occasionally. But this one spot we fished, we knew there was some decent fish there, and I just got lucky one day, and I ended up. Fishing in the margin in a rainstorm.
It was almost instantly, wasn't it? Though, like almost right. You kind of you had shown up, and then you said, "Oh, we're going to wait to kind of go out."
Yeah, I was waiting for another friend to show, and I had one line out, and when they showed up, I tossed the other line out as it started to proceed to rain. And within 10 minutes of this cloud burst, I got a slow take. And I got into the fish, and I got it. As soon as it came up to the surface, I saw the size of it. I almost had a heart attack.
Couldn't believe it.
And dropped into my knees. But we managed to get it in the net. It was 42.5 pound mirror.
Unbelievable.
Which was, I believe, was caught 4 or 5 other times.
It was quite a regular caught fish,
before and after. Yeah, it was caught a number of times, all the way up till I think almost 45 pounds at one point in this fish. And it was a testament to true catch and release, fishing and how that can benefit. And unfortunately, like I said, it fell to an arrow.
Yeah. Something we're trying to definitely combat here big time, isn't it? I think at the moment.
I mean, again, fortunately, I don't come across bow fishermen too often around here. I think in this state, it's not as big a thing as it is maybe in other states like Pennsylvania or down south. I think it's more of a sport. So unfortunately, I haven't really come across too much of that. But it's unfortunate the big guy, did take it.
What a fish, though, man! Like just to randomly kind of, I'm going to throw another rod out, and off it goes.
Yeah, it was definitely a fish of a lifetime, and so far it has been. I haven't topped that.
Okay. So you're still sitting at that one,
I have not caught a.
But what a fish to finish 40. It on, though. Yeah,
I've caught commons up to 39 pounds, 15 ounces, but I can't seem to crack that 40-pound common yet. But I'm still working on it.
Well, even then, it's the country offers some huge fish, doesn't it? I mean. And I think there's anglers all over the world that are still trying to catch a fish, even of that proportion, that still haven't been able to.
And some people are lucky. I have one of my buddies.
You think it's a lucky streak?
One of my buddies that I fish with occasionally, I was in his presence when he caught a 45 and a half and a 47 and a half. And this is a guy that fishes like twice a year.
Yeah.
And I've been doing this for years, fishing all kinds
What's
of
that, right place, the right time? Or do you think it's the knowledge or a bit of both? Maybe?
I think a little bit of both.
Right.
But anyway, I'm happy for the guy, but
That's awesome.
I'd love to get one like that.
Yeah. Well, it's just a matter of time, isn't it? I think.
Put your time in and, study your water, do your watercraft. And it's really not hard. It's just a lot of people don't take that extra time to really learn the water you're fishing before you fish it.
Yeah, right.
A lot of people just pull up and start casting out and they don't do any plumbing. They don't check where the structures are and whatnot. And sometimes it's a matter of 10, 15 feet one way or the other that's going to get you fish or no fish.
Now, do you think that for you, personally for you, over the years, that's something that you've had to do to figure out how to get onto the better fish? Obviously, you're a multi-species angler, so I think people that do fish for other species kind of tend to learn waters better.
I think, I've learned to read water.
Yeah.
Whether it's in a river or in a lake.
Right.
If you know the depths, the contours, the paths the fish are going to take from point A to point B. And if you can, intercept them in those areas, you're going to have a little better chance of catching some nice fish. But, it's definitely an acquired skill, watercraft.
Yeah, you don't just get it, do you? It's something that's just an over time thing, isn't it? And you kind of grow.
A lot of times the fish they'll give you the information you need. Spending time looking at water, watching where the fish crash, what time of day you're seeing the fish crash in different areas.
Absolutely.
A lot of places I fish, the fish are out of casting range during the day,
way out.
But in the evening they're moving in, and you can hear them. Once it gets dark, they get closer and closer. The next thing you know, you get a couple of runs. So it's just learning the fish, learning the water, using the right bait. I'm not saying that's as critical, but there are times when they do favor certain food sources, especially in bodies of water where there's a lot of natural food. Why would a fish want to eat a boilie if he's got crayfish running all over the place?
That's another thing we were talking about as well a while back was, why would a fish pick up a boilie? What, to a fish, what is a boilie?
Or a tiger nut.
Or even exactly, or even a tiger nut over, the abundance of obviously everything that we know is here. That, like you said, the mussels, the crayfish, the natural weed growth.
And you talk about tiger nuts, just a quick side story.
Yeah.
I forget who gave me my first jar of tiger nuts, but I had them in my bag forever. I'm looking at them going, I would never use this. What fish is ever going to eat this? Ironically, it was right down the road from here where we're speaking. I was fishing one night and I wasn't having any luck at all. And I looked through my bag and I found that jar of tiger nuts. And I put a tiger nut on one rod, had a run in 10 minutes. Put the tiger nut on both rods, I had double header. So there is something to be said about certain baits at certain times. And I don't know if they can just detect the sugar content in these things, whatever it is.
Right.
Tiger nuts are an instant bait. So I never travel without them now because they've saved my
never
butt.
Leave home without.
Many times they saved me, even in tournament situations. I've had some situations where they've bailed me out. So you just got to be open-minded to what you're using and when.
Yeah. Now you're an avid fly angler as well, aren't you?
I am.
Do a lot of that.
I did a bit of it, when I was younger. Again, I got out of it and got back into it. And part of that is, I commute like 50 miles each way to work every day. So I don't have a lot of time during the week to prepare. And how carp fishing is, you got to prepare.
Yeah. Everything in the kitchen sink, isn't it?
Which end up in your car when you leave just proves my point. And you get so much stuff you got to get ready. Whereas, fly fishing, I could just toss my rod and waders and my vest in the car and I'm on the water in a half an hour. And I like it because it's kind of a thinking man's sport. You kind of have to understand entomology, bugs, and life cycles of
those hatches and everything like that. So
you kind of have to be smart when it comes to that part of it. And I kind of like that challenge of it. And I'd like to eventually branch out and maybe do some carp fishing with the fly.
Yeah, actually, that's what I was kind of going to ask you about. And if you ever done that, I've given it a go, but there's a huge growth and a huge kind of happening now with I think the American Carp Society are also kind of branched out, and they've now got like a carp fly fishing contingent under the name, which is, I think, a great way to really help boost the the appreciation of the fish. Because if you're a fly angler and you're doing well, I think people kind of look up to the fly fishing guys.
We used to look up at them as snobs when we were kids.
Well, that's what I mean. Yeah, within a week.
Look at these fly guys. They don't want us spin fishing.
So it kind of like, I think it paints a really good light around the carp, especially if you're fishing for them specifically. And, a lot of people say that they're like the poor man's bonefish, right? I've never been out to the salt flats to do anything like that, but I don't know. Have you done anything like that for the bonefish?
I've done some saltwater, but no fly fishing in salt yet. But
supposedly carp on the fly is definitely something that's really.
I've got some stripers
happening.
that way, but
really okay.
Else, that's a challenge. But like I said, to me, a carp on a fly rod is no different than a steelhead. It's just
plenty
hard
of power.
Fighting fish, and the hard part about I think fly fishing for carp is you need to be able to visually fish them for the most part. If you can see them and you can drop a fly and twitch it in front of them, you got a better chance of picking one up. But blind fishing, with a fly for carp could be quite challenging.
I would imagine, you got to know they're there. I mean, first and foremost, right?
I think I might have snagged a couple, but I don't think I've caught it in the mouth yet. So.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I don't even know honestly where I'd start with that. But at some point I might try and give that a go. I've been fly fishing for the salmon up on the old Pulaski area, New York.
We go every year for steelhead and we have a good time. And a couple of years ago I went solo fly rod and just leaving the spin rod home, and I've been fortunate enough to get some nice steelhead up there. It's always a winter destination just to kind of break the ice of winter, as much as we can. You can't carp fish year round here without a little bit of difficulty. So
that's it.
We don't have some diversion.
Yeah, we don't have too much in the way of open water, do we? Once that ice sets in, it's kind of everything shuts down. So have you got anything, big planned for the next few years in terms of carp fishing, or are you just going to continue to do your thing and do a few social things? And
well, I might get back into a little bit more than I have the past few years. I did back off a little bit when my son was finishing high school and getting ready for college things. So I had a lot on my plate. And at the time I was just the Connecticut State Chairman, and that took a lot of time too. We did a lot of events.
Work, isn't it, for that kind of thing? Let's go into a little bit on that. I mean,
it's a little bit, it's volunteer, obviously, and it can be a thankless position,
of course,
as some of the chairmen will tell you. But I enjoyed it. We put at least 2 fish-ins in a year in the state, and we came up with some other things. We did the Caggie, and Bob Giordano and I came up with the event, the Yankee Challenge event, which was very fun. It was a friendly,
quite popular as well, wasn't it?
Competition with Massachusetts against Connecticut. For a silly little trophy.
I hear at some points over the years there was some quite funny stories that came off a lot of those events. Of funny.
So I could write a book about the stories of carp fishing. Trust me, but that's for another time.
Yeah.
But I plan on doing a little bit more, and maybe getting more involved with some stuff like we're doing here. Just talking about carp fishing.
Yeah, I think it's really important to kind of memorize that and kind of really document it historically.
There's some really smart guys out there that I've had the pleasure of meeting over the years.
Sure,
they're really good anglers. I can't name them all. There's so many of
course.
Yeah. And a lot of friendships that have been made, carp fishing, I still have. I mean, they don't disappear, even when you stop fishing. So
carp fishing it's strange like that, isn't it? It's a good thing. Like you kind of make these relationships, these friendships with anglers. You can go, 5 to 10 years, whatever, and not see them, and then you see them out there, and you're like, it kind of lifts back off where it left off, kind of.
It was the coolest thing when it first came about. When CAG, started up, that was like very cool. Yeah, it was like this unique club that not many people knew about. And it was just a fun thing, and to be part of the beginning of something. I don't want to say I'm a CAG pioneer. I hate to say that.
But still, even then, I mean, I know there were quite a number of other guys, before us both. But you've been there for, we're in it for quite a number of years.
And I like to think, I've been a positive influence on a number of people that have gotten into the sport. So
I'm not going to lie. A few guys that have kind of mentioned your name. I've never said a bad thing.
I feel bad ever. Sometimes. I'll go to these events and somebody will come up to me. Hey, they know.
Well, you're a legend, really. Let's face it.
I asked my son, how these people all know me? They're like, Dad, everybody knows you.
Yeah, I was just fishing with a young lad just a few days back. Never fished a lake we were on before, and he asked me at one point, hey, if you're ever up that way, can you contact me? And I'd love to come and fish with us. So I said, yeah, no problem. So I was up there, contacted him. He caught a fish, lucky enough, but one of the first few words out of his mouth, do you know Mike Dragone? And that kind of started a whole story. And I believe he was fishing with you up on the St. Lawrence. He was a runner.
Oh, that was probably was it the guy from the St. Lawrence the time we were just at there. He was our marshal.
Yeah, okay, there you go.
I believe. So.
Yeah, young Bradley.
Brad.
Yeah, Brad.
Nice guy.
Yeah, really, really good guy. Doing good things.
Good. Yeah, we like to, try to influence people in a positive way when it comes to this stuff as much as we can. So.
Yeah, that's it. I think yourself, and I think there's a couple other guys, but really, really kind of put a good light on carp angling and helped kind of not sway people, but shown them the right from wrong and the carp care side of things over the years. I think you've probably really done a fantastic job of that.
I think we also did a pretty good job, some of us in this region, to promote the sport. Like CAG, when it first came out, was mainly a Midwest thing. Chicago area. It was all the articles in the newsletter were all about stuff in Chicago, Sheboygan, and this and that.
Sure.
We're like, well, what about New England?
Yeah, there's tons of it going on.
I remember asking Paul Pizzala from Whacker Baits. He was affiliated with the newsletter at some point, and I was like, how come nobody does any articles from the Northeast? He goes, why don't you? I'm like,
there you go.
You
drop yourself in it.
and myself and Eddie Wagner, for a while there, we would write articles for just about every issue of the CAG newsletter.
Yeah.
And I like to write anyway, so it's kind of my fun thing to do. So it was a good way to promote, the carp fishing out here. We would do fishings and we would do fishing reports with pictures.
Yeah.
And that, by now, the internet's now a thing. So
it is, but I think people still really highly appreciate the written word and stuff like, especially I've got a number of carp books as well, and I don't, I'm sure you've kind of read plenty, sure. in your years, but it's one of those things that it's always good to have, to lean back on as well. And I think many people have said it, but social media is good for the instant kind of look at that, look at this. But for longevity, like once it's on there, it gets buried, doesn't it, by a layer of masses of other images and kind of gets forgotten about. So I think doing something like this, people can listen to it over time, or like you said, these small publications where people can kind of pick up and read it and kind of remember it and go back to it and kind of revert to that is always really good. Yeah. I think a lot of the CAG fishings, New York fishings happened at the Troy Dam, didn't they?
Yes, it was one of the first places that you could go to catch some really nice fish.
Yeah.
Some big fish. I remember being told before I went the first time, make sure you ramp up your line and your heavy leads, because these fish they'll run you around. So I was brand new at the time. And I think that's where I caught my first fish on a boilie.
Really?
And I remember buying a bag. I think, and again, I bought them from Euro Tackle. It was a bag of these, I think they were Kevin Maddox Strawberry Crush boys or RM30s or something. And I remember I always would just stick my face in the bag and smell them. They smelled so good. So I remember, fishing next to, I think, Quid Blankley at the time. And we just caught so many fish. I just couldn't get my head around how much bait was being thrown in the water. People were throwing 5-gallon buckets full of maize out there. I'm like, how are they going to find my hook bait in the middle of all this? And they all just looked at me like, don't worry about it. And they were absolutely right, because I was catching fish hand over fist, all night long. And it was one of the nice spots, not the prettiest place to have a fishing, but there was a lot of fish there.
Now, have you been there recently, or is that something that just kind of?
I think I drove by there a couple of years ago, and they did some kind of waterfront restoration there. They got a bunch of marinas and things. You can't fish it like you used to. It was kind of a bad section of Troy. You wouldn't want to be caught there by yourself after dark unless you had somebody with you.
A few undesirables.
It was a little bit undesirable. Every once in a while, you hear a gunshot across the river and be like, are they shooting at us?
My gosh. Yeah.
But it was one of those, every year it was like, we always had a fishing in August every year up there. It was like a yearly thing.
Yeah.
And again, it was none of those places where you could catch some really big fish. And then over the years, it just didn't fish the same,
It's kind of tapered off.
Weird, But, there's plenty of places along the Hudson River. It's, any of these tidal rivers, the Hudson, the Connecticut River. Yeah. They're just spectacular fisheries for many things, including carp. Anywhere from, and we've caught, some serious fish in what I would consider brackish.
I was going to say, if you fish down
very
in that
salty
section,
water to the point where, I have to wash my gear off when I come home because it'll corrode
with the salt,
the aluminum. There's so much salt in the water, but these fish are eating, blue claw crabs. That's part of their diet. That's what they eat, and they get so big. And you look at their mouths. You can tell that's what they do.
That's it.
You got these huge lips. They're like leather. It's unbelievable.
Now, when you first got into carp fishing like that, did you ever think that you'd be kind of fishing those areas, those rivers like the Connecticut River and the Hudson, like these big kind of, because they're huge. I mean, especially the Hudson, that lower section.
It's a little daunting, especially for some people. I remember talking about Dan Pazio. I remember taking him to the St. Lawrence for the first time before one of the junior tournaments, and he helped us do some baiting. We went out the night before with one of the local tackle shop owners up there. And, we were going to help him out, put a bunch of bait out in these different sections. And we got in this boat, it was probably a 17-foot boat. And there must have been 25 5-gallon pails of maize in it. And I remember Dan Pazio just looking at me going, what are they doing with this? I said, we're going to bait up the spots. I said, and half of it will be gone by morning. And I had this look on his face, and he's like, I got to take a picture of this and send it to my brother. He's not going to believe it.
Yeah.
So it's hard, to come from that environment to see the scope of these fisheries. They're massive bodies of water. And you're like, where do you start? And really, you just find a good spot and you just bait them up and they'll show up. It's no different than fishing a small body of water. You just can't let the size of it get into your head.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
And the one thing that did strike me, and I never realized this until I fished the Connecticut River, was how far down the river these fish are.
Into the brackish sections.
You can catch carp a mile from the 95 bridge, down in, down lower Connecticut. There's tons of fish there. And I think they move in and out just like the tides. There's the salt moves in, they move up the river with it, and they move out with it.
I was talking to another angler, Evan, about that a while ago, and he was basically saying that the salinity percentage in water, like, for example, like the Connecticut River, carp can live in like quite a high percentage of salt water and just kind of just naturally live there as if it was fully fresh water. They can eat there, spawn there, and just live kind of like move with the tides, if you will.
Yeah, exactly.
Without any problems.
Think about it, and that's why some of these fish are so big. Think about the food source that they have over top of a freshwater body, like a lake or a pond. You got shrimp, you got crabs, you've got all this biomass, that lives in that brackish environment that other fish in freshwater don't get to see. So I think that has a lot to do with the size of some of these fish and some of these, these riverine environments. And they're strong fish. They grow up in current. You hook one of these river fish,
they're gone, aren't they? Yeah, that's it.
It's a whole different ball game.
Yeah.
There's certain things that I learned that kind of surprised me. And that was one of them. Another thing that surprised me was I was always under the impression as a kid that once the water got cold, carp like kind of hibernated,
shut down or something.
So I used to just, after, in September rolled around, I would just throw my stuff in a closet and I wouldn't even talk to anybody until April. And then I realized, man, look at all the good fishing I've been missing. Because you can catch them essentially year round as long as you know where to get them and how. Not that I actively, target carp in this area.
Have you done any carp through the ice before?
I did once because I wanted to just be able to say that I caught one through the ice.
How did that work out?
And actually, when I was up to Charles River in Boston, back in the heyday, and we were catching fish right across from Fenway Park in the Charles River,
right,
on tip ups and jigging holes through the ice.
That's unreal to me. That's mind blowing. Like, I mean, I know there's a number of guys that do it, and they do it quite well, and they've had some great success with big fish.
Right.
There's got to be like regular carp fishing without the ice. There's got to be a technique to how you're baiting and. I think
the big thing in the winter is location, because I think they kind of congregate together in the winter, and the other thing is the feeding window. It's there, but it's shorter.
Right.
It's not, you're not going to catch them all day. There might be an hour where they're actively, trying to pick up some food. They need to eat something throughout the winter. They're not going to just starve over the winter.
Of course, yeah. But they move less, obviously, because metabolism, they don't want to burn through what they've got stored up.
If you could find, that spot where they're hanging out, chances are you're going to be able to, you can
Now, was that spot you went to do that a known kind of area to go for that?
We just discovered it. I mean, some of the folks out that way, I can't think of all the names, but Fran Szynski was part of that.
Yeah, bless
rest
him.
his
Yeah.
soul. We found the spot, and people posted a few pictures of people catching through the ice, and I was like, I told my son, let's go. I want to catch them through the ice. And we did. And that was like the last time I did it.
Now, like you said that about like kind of checking out pictures and stuff and figuring things out. That's happened quite a lot over the years, hasn't it? I think with spots and locations for like different anglers and people have kind of caught on.
Yeah, there's a pro and a con to that. I mean, one of the big cons is you don't want to happen is to have some bow fishermen stumble across some locations where you're getting some big fish, and it's happened, you know. And I'm always one. I'm not the most secretive guy in the world, so I'll let people know. Hey, go here, it's good. Go there, it's good. And, but there are spots that are sensitive. I mean, there are places that if you don't do the right thing and you break a few rules and get caught, you're going to ruin it for everybody. Quick, it's whether you're not allowed to overnight or whatever. You just some people will find a spot and they'll just fish it to death for 3 weeks, and the spot ain't a spot anymore. So we've all come across that. Again, it's not really a big issue with me, but I feel like you're pretty easy going. I'm like one of those my spots, your spot, as long as you respect it.
That's it.
I'm good with it.
Yeah, I think over the year there's been a number of drama issues that have kind of come about for things like that.
There will always be drama.
But I think that's just one of those things. There will always be. There will always
be drama, and there will always be the people that want to catch the biggest one ever.
Yeah. I think that's part of the sport, isn't it? Yeah. Like what the drive behind getting out there and doing, I mean, obviously the passion behind it is just getting out there and fishing and enjoying being outdoors. But part of it has got to be the next biggest fish, hasn't it?
You can get caught up in it. There's
Absolutely.
No doubt. I mean, I'm the kind of person, I like fishing for big fish. I like fishing for a lot of fish. So if I feel like going out and having a session where I can just, catch a dozen or two fish and they may not be big, I'll do that. And if I want to, I know a couple of big fish waters where, you can get a 30, 40 pounder, but you may only get 1 or 2 runs a day. That's the trade-off.
The trade-off of it. Absolutely.
If you can find a place that's got both, and then you keep that place a secret. Don't tell anybody about it. But it's, there's plenty of places and plenty of fish. You shouldn't really have that issue.
Yeah, I think over the years myself, I've done that as well. Kind of, you get focused in on really trying to attempt to really strive for the best results you possibly can. You get kind of carried away and lost a little bit with. And we try to build
relationships with with the local people, the law enforcement. I mean, we're the type of people who go around. I don't like fishing in places that have garbage. And so I'll bring a garbage bag with me. I'll fill up a hefty bag full of everybody else's garbage just to clean the place out for the next time.
One of the things that came up when I was talking with another angler also a few weeks back. It's like amazing the amount of trash and garbage and rubbish and stuff that's left around. That we as carp anglers, I don't know what it is about carp anglers. We've just kind of taken that on.
I've actually had people come up to me and say, "Oh, you're one of the carp guys. I don't have to worry about you."
Yeah, there you go.
And that makes you feel good.
It really has kind of just put us in a good light in a number of kind of areas, in the country, hasn't it? I think a lot of times I turn up and I'll instantly see one of those polystyrene worm tubs. Mm. I'm just like, all right, here we go. I know what my job's going to be for the next hour. Kind of wandering around and picking up.
I mean, part of the experience for me is, enjoying where I'm at, whether I'm fishing, getting fish or not. I'm an outdoor person, whether I was, back when I bow hunted or any kind of fishing I do, I like the experience of being outside, and I don't like to be in an area that's got rubbish in it.
Of course. So you don't want to have to deal with that.
It kind of ruins the whole experience for me.
Yeah.
So I try to.
But I think it's great that for somehow that kind of has trickled down over the years that carp anglers, when they do go, they're obviously, very sensitive to that kind of that area or wherever they might be fishing. They're always willing to kind of go the extra mile to.
I mean, you go to these tournaments, you see after the tournament's done, you go around to the different pegs. You can't tell that anybody was there.
Yeah.
It's probably cleaner, after we're done with it. But before we started. So
I think that's it. And that says a lot, doesn't it, really, for what we're doing, not only the sport and fishing for carp, but kind of just the sportsmanship kind of mentality, like want to all work together and keep places clean like that, which is great.
And I think another thing that's important is keeping these kids coming in, these young kids, getting them interested. And I always thought that was a great thing when they had the St. Lawrence Junior Tournament, which still happens.
Yeah, I think that still goes on, right? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
maybe not on the scale that it was back then, but it was a great opportunity to teach kids. And we would have what we called carp school. On Thursday before the tournament started, we'd have, basically 8 or 10, guys, CAG guys,
Yep.
that would each take 8 or 10 kids, and we would teach them everything about how to tie hair rigs, how to, set your bait runner, how to, all this, the basic things about carp fishing.
Now, that was the day before the kids' tournament, wasn't it?
And
I did a couple of those.
It was very rewarding to see these kids the next day applying what they learned 24 hours before and catching these huge fish.
Yeah.
I had one girl in my class the first year I went with my son. He was probably like 11. So we had a group out there, fishing after class just to give them a little practice. And this one girl, I think her name was Millie. She was like, I'm not going to catch any fish. I'm not a good fisherman. I said, you will catch some fish. I promise you. Yep. She caught a 43 pounder the next day, which is bigger than anyone I ever caught. So it just goes to show you, and that's the kind of thing that happens. It gets you hooked for life. You have some success and some good mentorship, and they're the next generation. And I see that, with CAG and some of these groups. There are some new young blood in there that I haven't met before that are good fishermen.
I think the sport's definitely growing.
The Connecticut group, these guys that fish the Connecticut River and do these tournaments out east here. There's some pretty good anglers in the group.
Yeah, absolutely.
And as good as you are, you can always learn from somebody else.
Oh, I think that's part of it, isn't it? Really, you're always going to learn like a little something here or there whenever you go fishing with someone else.
Right, and in the different styles. I mean, look at the pay laking.
Oh man,
it's like,
wow, that's a whole nother.
It's a whole nother podcast,
level, isn't it?
Which I'm not going to get into. But
we've got some of that lined up actually.
But they've got some. There's some great anglers that fish that style, and I've learned some things from them.
Yeah, and you kind of adapt it.
And I've applied some of their tactics in certain situations, and they really work. That type of fishing has come a long way in the past 10 years as well.
Right.
So, but that's another podcast. That's something else.
You know what? There's something we're gonna kind of at some point we'll dig into a few down the road. But it blows my mind still that people can put on a cereal, like puff cereal, onto a hook, and
it works. I've seen it work.
Fish absolutely nail them, and the guys are doing fantastic, with it, and then catching some really big fish on it, and numbers of them too. And it's all about the flavoring, because I don't know much about it, puffology, whatever they call it, but the puff is just a pickup, isn't it? So really, it's not like they're even fishing. I almost don't even think
the flavor of the puff to me is. It's
just a visual.
I think it's just all the puff does is it basically makes the hook neutral. So when the fish come by and they see that pile of stuff, they're just going to inhale it, and that hook just goes with it.
There you go. Right.
So whether the puff is the most important part of the pack
or not,
I'm not really sure. I'm not qualified to tell you that.
You probably know more than I do on that front. I've dabbled in some stuff like that, but more generally towards the method.
But it does work in certain situations. And maybe not all. Fishing pack in a river, tidal river might be a completely different challenge that not many people are up for. But, in certain situations, it definitely can outfish, Euro style. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, I just love boilie fishing.
It's easy enough.
It's easy. It's not always cost effective, is it? But like you said before, it sometimes tends to kind of sway the bigger fish, I've found personally. But
well, even if I fish with, with some particles, I'll fish a boilie over top of
the top of it. Yeah.
In my tournament experiences, no matter what you start with, the bigger fish always seem to come to the boilies in the end. So, a lot of the tournaments we do, we'll start off, with some particles, out there and with some boilies mixed in. And eventually you wean the fish off the particles and onto the boilies. And that seems to be what's worked for us.
That progression kind of works, and pulling the bigger fish and kicks out the smaller ones.
Right. And I think some of the smaller particles attract, large groups of smaller stamp fish.
Right.
Carp fish, they kind of swim together in similar, size groups. And I found that if you're fishing and you're catching, 20 pounders and 21 pounders, that seems to be the thing. But then all of a sudden you get like a 30. And chances are you're going to get a couple more big fish in that short time span because they usually travel
swimming together. Yeah, right.
So that's what I found that seems to be the case. And the kiss of death when you're in a tournament is on day 3 when it's the 18 pounders that are in your spot, not the 30s.
Yeah, not the ones you really
happens
need.
more often than not.
The 18 aren't there, are they? And it's just kind of wading through them all just to pick one good one up.
Exactly.
Oh, brilliant. Well, you know what? We're going to wrap it up, I think, here. Thanks for coming on, joining us here and spending a bit of time telling us about your history of, what you've been involved in over the years within the carp world over here in the US. It's definitely something that's grown and continuing to grow. And hopefully we'll see it get bigger, but hopefully not too much bigger, right?
I appreciate you having me. It's a pleasure talking to you and all kinds of stories to tell. So there's a lot more of us out there that that can shed some light on this sport and actually help promote it. So again, appreciate you having me.
Yeah, thanks ever so much for sharing some of your words with us. Appreciate it.
Cool, tight lines.
For more upcoming episodes of the Big Carp News Podcast, written articles, product reviews, and much, much more, be sure to check out the Big Carp News website over at www.bigcarpnews.com. And also, as always, don't forget to check out Big Carp Tackle for all your carp tackle needs right here in the USA. Once again, thanks ever so much for Mike Dragone for taking the time out and sharing a number of his past and present experiences of his carp angling. Absolutely fantastic stuff. And thanks for joining us. Take care, be safe, and we'll catch you on the next podcast.